What's up, everybody? I'm Nick with Mad for Multi-Rotors, and today I have the next, latest, and greatest amazing build. What is it? Can't you see it? No? Take a close look. It's in here somewhere. It's the Sputnik 117 from SputnikFPV.com. It's tiny, and it's gonna be fun. Let's go check it out. Sputnik. So here's the itty bitty tiny guy in the package. Itty bitty. We've got some awesome stickers. This pretty sweet all-in-one little PDB here. Definitely all-in-one. It's got a spot for the regulator, satellite receiver or PPM, ESC connections, Pololu, all kinds of awesome stuff. Nylon hardware baggie. 3D printed camera mount and antenna mounts. Wow, it's really hard to tell on camera, but this is some of the smoothest, cleanest 3D printing I've ever seen. Like, wow. Little antenna mounts. And the piece de resistance, the little carbon fiber frame. Now the top plate looks to be maybe 1.5 millimeter carbon, and the bottom one looks to be 2 millimeter carbon. And it's, wow, insanely light. It's going for $36.99 on sale, normally $39.99, and honestly this thing has some amazingly clean cuts and design and print. Like, wow, normally you see a 3D print with all kinds of lines, but this thing is just smooth. You can see it glistening in the light. Now, this is going to be the smallest build I've ever done, so I'm going to have to take my time and be careful. And just for comparison, there's a Cheerson CX-10. And there's a Multi-Rotor Mania Switchblade. This is going to be fun. I can't wait to start. Alright, here it is. Possibly one of my favorite small little tiny quads I've ever flown. I don't know if this qualifies as the toy grade size quality, but the build on this thing was absolutely great. You got to remember, it's small parts, small pieces, so you are going to have to make sure you find your parts and pieces with that in mind. Now, that being said, I would personally say the complexity of this build is based upon what parts you decide that you want to retrofit and use. Sputnik FPV does include a suggested build guide that goes through a list of all the parts that they suggest to use. And for the most part, I followed that guide fairly to the letter. There's a few different revisions of parts I used, and yeah, it made it a little difficult, but it wasn't too hard to compensate for. Now, quickly to go over the build here, I'm using RCX 1105 TAC 4000 kV motors with 3-inch 30-20 props. These are little B 12-amp ESCs that I flashed with multi-shot. I am using an Afro Mini Naze. I believe it's Rev 2. I'm not using the OSD. I'm using a Spectrum satellite. You can kind of see it in there. It's tight, tight, tight. And then I'm using a generic 250 milliwatt video transmitter. And as you can see, there is not a whole lot of space in there. Now, I will say the little PDB he includes in here makes everything so much better. It has slots for the Pololu voltage regulator, which is, it's right there in the middle. Right, come on camera. Right there in the middle. I mean, you kind of saw it for a second there. It has slots for the direct pinning. Come on camera. There we go. The direct pinning of the flight controller to the board itself, so you don't have to worry about running a bunch of wires or it being loose. Once you solder it on there, it's set. Now, I didn't use the Rev 3 version of this board, which has pins for the actual receiver input, so I had to use the PWM breakout cable, but I wired it up with the satellite, so I just wired it up as a serial receiver. It does have a slot for camera wiring. I apologize for the blurry camera, guys. This thing really is small. I mean, you can see right here. Here's my 160, which I thought was small before, and here's my 220 Wasp. But it does have camera slot, 5-volt power, as well as a 5-volt for the VTX. Right there, you can just see the 5V, but I'm using a 12-volt VTX, so I just wired it straight up to the battery leads, so no problem. And then I just straight soldered, to get rid of a little bit extra weight, I straight soldered the antenna wire right. Oh, it's just too small for this camera. Anyway, you can see I wired the antenna wire straight through it and straight through the little holder here, so I don't have to worry about it. And I didn't use a clover, but honestly, I don't get a whole lot of breakup. I'm going to show y'all some DVR footage at the end of this, but it's a LaForge diversity, and the camera or the antenna switching will cause a lot of static. So it's actually not as bad as it looks. Now, I love this little frame. This thing is just a blast to fly. It's 126 grams, all up weight with the battery. I'm running these little 3S Electron Pro 450 milliamp batteries, and I mean, it's just so much fun. I took it to the park. I flew it around through the park. I mean, the little hanging obstacles, monkey bars, all kinds of fun stuff. I got bored and sat on my porch and flew it around my apartment complex chasing birds early one morning just for the hell of it. And I mean, it is just it's so much fun. It fits in your cargo pocket. It's barely the size of my hand here. I mean, it's going to be going to the campus with me, and I'm going to go find some more places to mess with it. But, I mean, it's great, and his suggested build guide works perfectly. I may throw some 1306 motors on here in the future, but, I mean, for the moment, these things are working great. The Afro Mini Naze is it performs a lot better than I expected. I expected it to be a very limited version of a Naze, but, I mean, I've got it set on a 2 kilohertz refresh rate right now, and it's only pulling like 16% of the processor. But that's the board, not the quad. The quad itself is absolutely wonderful. Nylon hardware keeps it light. All these printed, molded, painted protection guard for the camera works great. It lets you tilt the camera a little bit here. Just follow the build guide if you want to get one of these. I think the overall parts cost was less than $150 for everything, excluding the frame, and I definitely love this frame. I mean, I wanted a tiny whoop, but honestly, I think I'd rather have this. I can take this outside and have fun with it and not be too scared about messing it up. So, Sputnik FPV, great frame. If you're looking for a fun little pocket quad, I mean, and you're willing to build, grab one of these. Great frames.